Hey, everybody, good afternoon. We're going to have a fun show today. I've got Jamal Igle, who is going to be joining me in a few moments. I've got my 80s hairdo going on today. It's super humid down here in Central Florida. So yeah, I'm sporting a multi-decades old look for everyone this afternoon. But yeah, welcome to the show. I know this is a first time interview with Jamal. I'm really looking forward to chatting with him. We got to talk a little bit in the green room before we got started here today, but I'm going to bring Jamal in and we're going to get rolling here, man. Hey, Jamal.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
I am doing very well, man. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. It's Saturday afternoon. It's kind of low key. I cleared some work off the deck, so I'm ready to talk.
Awesome. Now, one thing I see the banners behind you. You've always had a unique way of, having your brand out there. Whether it's, when I look at a lot of the old published covers or whatever that you've done, you always kind of have a signature way, and it's evolved a little bit over time
Right.
of doing that. Was clearly with intent, right? Because
Right.
most other guys are going to sign it, but you've kind of always had a branding kind of approach to how you handle that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that comes from my advertising and marketing background. So, I'm always constantly thinking about how to brand myself, how to promote myself at conventions, in public, that sort of thing. I spent a few years even doing marketing in comics. As a few people know, I was the marketing director at Action Lab for about 3 years. So I'm always thinking about and always looking at trends in marketing and advertising. And I still find it, even after all these years later, I still find that whole world very fascinating.
Well, that's cool. Well, I appreciate that because I can say that I don't see that too often. Not too many artists approach their business model like that. But yeah, if you go to your website, you see that same kind of approach. I think to the way you present yourself as a multifaceted, not just as a artist, but as a writer and other creative avenues as well.
After a while, it's actually really funny because I had to figure out, I do so many different things and I've done so many different things over the course of my life and my career, even outside of comics, that I was trying to really figure out what am I? Because I'm not just a writer, I'm not just an artist. I've been an actor, I've worked in print media, I've done advertising, I've worked in book publishing, and I've done so many different things. So I finally, as I was looking around for a title for myself, and I stumbled across the perfect one, which was creative services, which kind of encompasses everything that I've done. I've written articles, I've written comics, I've worked in television, I've done TV animation. It's a nice catch-all.
Sure. Actor though, what
Oh yeah, that was the initial. When I was a kid, the first thing I ever did was, I was about 2 years old, and I was in a Kevin Hooks Irene Cara movie called Aaron Loves Angela. And it's a really small part, but I've done off-Broadway stuff, school plays. I've done voiceovers for commercials and video game, early CD-ROM games. I did a bunch of voiceover stuff for this digital magazine back in the early 90s called Digital Culture Stream. So yeah, so it was one of these kind of weird decisions where, when I was about 14 and looking at high schools, because I live in New York City, so we have all these specialized high schools. So I was looking at the High School of Art and Design, where I ultimately ended up going, and LaGuardia School of the Arts. And when I was going to test for LaGuardia, I was testing as an artist, as a visual artist, but also as a singer and an actor. And the exams for both of those tests were the same time at the same day. So I literally had to make a choice whether I was going to keep pursuing being an actor, or if I was going to become the comic book artist that I wanted to become. So I decided to become a comic book artist instead.
And well, that's I was going to lead into that. So that's cool. So you did actually have to make that choice and abandon the other creative pursuit. I mean, that's That's tough. I mean, so many other people. I don't know. I can't say that I've talked to somebody who had that kind of had to wrestle with one or the other. But comics was something that was you clearly was the focal point for you.
Oh
Then,
yeah,
right?
no, that was from the moment that I saw Superman the movie. That was just like that was the thing more than anything else. Like I I enjoyed acting, but not as much as I enjoyed being a visual artist
Mhm.
and enjoy drawing comics specifically. It always comes back to comics. Like no matter what other creative endeavors I've done over the years, it has literally always been like, hey, there's this cool comic book thing that I haven't done yet. Let's go back and do that.
So the Superman movie was the thing that kicked it off.
That was the thing. My grandfather took me to see it. I've told this story so many times, but it's true. It's very, very true. So my grandpa Albert took me and my sister to see Superman the movie when I was 5, and we got to the theater late. We walked in just as Clark hears the hypersonic signal from Lex Luthor and dives out the Daily Planet window. So
Mhm.
for a 5-year-old, that being your first image of like big screen superheroics, I grabbed his arm and said, I want to do that. I didn't know what that was at the time, but from that moment on, like there was sort of like a light bulb moment. Being a 70s kid like you and I are, we were surrounded by all we have the $6 million man and Incredible Hulk, and we have the Super Friends, and the Batman cartoon, and the Filmation one, and
Sure.
Tarzan, and all of that stuff. So you're surrounded by that stuff you don't really notice, and it was like a switch went off in my head, and suddenly it was everywhere for me. Which kind of happened with girls too, but that's a different story.
Maybe not at 5, but still. So
No.
before that, so you didn't really know what you were going into at the theater, right? I mean, comics weren't a part of your life at that point,
No,
but after that, they were.
not in the way that it was a conscious thing. Like they were sort of always around. My dad read comics. There was always my uncle Carl read comics too. So they were always sort of. Then you had like newspaper strips and everything else, and they were always sort of around. But it wasn't something that like I consciously pursued or knew was a possibility. Of being something viable, as a living. So it was like after that, then my family took notice that I was really interested. More specifically, I was really interested in Superman suddenly,
Mhm.
and then comics as a whole. So they started to sort of encourage that.
Very cool. Yeah, when you mentioned the comic strips, I always, I don't think I ever really mentioned that here, but so the Sunday paper was always such a important thing to come in every week to get the
Oh yeah,
strips in color. Uh,
absolutely.
in my house, and I think a lot of households, even to for many years, even after that, we would always set aside the Sunday comic strips so that everybody in the family would get the chance to read it. You
Oh
didn't
yeah, but
want to
I think
potentially
it was
overburden them.
really, yeah, it was really, especially at the time, it was a much different experience than you would get now. Like if you
Mhm.
do get a couple of strips in the Sunday newspaper, it's maybe like 2 pages in the back. No, when we were kids, the Sunday comic section, like a full page, you know, Larry Lieber Spider-Man like Sunday strip, like full color, full page. That blows your mind once you really start to pay attention to it. But it was a product of a different time as well.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, for me, yeah, the Spider-Man strip was the one thing that I always had to check out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was always the important one. I never got into like the Phantom, but they were always there, you know. But Al Cap and
Yeah.
and those sorts of things. I mean, it's funny, as an art collector today, I have such a different appreciation for Al Cap, and
Mm,
or Beetle Bailey, the artists from those strips, Hagar the Horrible. You look at
right.
they were just something to make me laugh when I was a kid, and I look at them today, and they're just beautiful works of art. But
Absolutely.
you get to that moment where you realize, that there's something more important to these pieces than just something to kind of put a smile on my face on a Sunday afternoon,
Oh,
right?
yeah. But I think
Um,
also when you look at it from an artistic standpoint, again, being a product of, a different time, a different way of handling the industry. I mean, there was a time when newspaper strips were the dominant, feature in comics, in the comics world, even more so than comic books. Like newspaper strips were international; they were huge business. So the artistry behind that you were competing. Like these guys were really competing with each other. When especially the time when you had Al Cap and Milton Caniff and Alex Toth and Will Eisner and
Charles Schultz, right?
Charles Schultz, absolutely. Charles Schultz, Ernie Bushmiller, just the whole gamut, of legendary talent that I don't think, I think people appreciate it, but I don't think they really knew what was going into, these pages back then.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think seeing the Schultz pieces go for high dollars beginning 12, 15 years ago.
Johnny Hart too.
Johnny, yeah, exactly. Pop sequentialism. It's true. There's it's nice to see, and I still think that strip art doesn't quite get the the recognition that it deserves.
I absolutely agree.
Unless they crossed over into comics and things, but I think that's changing. I think as people kind of recognize those talents a little bit more, especially when those strips aren't being created anymore, and the collectors start seeing them and wanting to get. I mean, I want a Hagar the Horrible strip. Every time it comes up on eBay or on Heritage, I'm watching it just to see if it's going to fall in a range where I can pick one up, right? Because those are the things I grew up on. I have Archie, right? I mean, I have a Dan DeCarlo Archie strip that I bought for my father. Of all things, right? Because it reminded me of my dad, but I don't own one. So, that's cool. I don't know. I don't think about strip art too often, but we do. We're definitely trying to find ways to get people to be more aware of different things outside of just comic book artwork on CAF. One of my favorite real life moments was I was at a convention here in New York, and I brought my mom. She was a huge fan of Dondi, and I introduced her to Erwin Hassan. Oh wow. And he did a sketch for her, and she was over the moon. Just absolutely over the moon. Because that was her era. Her era was, watching episodes of the original Johnny Quest and reading Dondi in the newspaper. Yeah, that's cool. And we always talk about that. Our hobby is one, whether it's just on the comic side or on the art side, you can share it with everybody in the family, right?
Yeah,
and I talked with my mom. She watches these shows, so I was up in Ohio a week ago, and she'll ask me questions about some of the art reps or the artists that I work with, and it's cool. I love our hobby because of that. You pretty much involve the whole family. From your spouse to your kids, even to your parents. Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you mentioned the Ringo Awards and kind of why you're at where you're at today, and I figure I don't want to forget to talk about that. So you're a juror. I am a juror, yes. Ringo Awards. Now, how did you become? How did you get this honor of being a juror? Well, I've had long-standing relationships with Mark and Shelley Nathan over at Baltimore Comic Con, with Mark Wade and Todd DeZago and everybody over at the Matt and Suzanne Ruringo over at the Ringo Awards themselves. So it was, and I was a presenter last year, and they were kind enough to ask. And I was such an admirer of the late Mike Ruringo, both as an artist and as a person, just genuinely one of the nicest people you could possibly meet. And there was an admiration for his talent. I was also a little intimidated by him, not in a bad way. I just you can't really tell it, by the way that, as gregarious as I can be sometimes, but I do tend to be a little shy and reserved, especially around people that I respect.
So, so I never wanted to I never really wanted to bother him, that kind of thing. But we were always friendly with each other, and but I've become friends with with his brother and his sister-in-law, and it's just being able to participate in something like this. Like, I'm lucky that I'm on the Ringer Awards. I've been part of the Dwayne McDuffie Awards, the Diversity Awards, for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been a juror on that as well. But it's nice to be able to give back to other creators in that way, and with some ego attached. It's nice to be thought of as somebody who actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to comics.
Sure.
Or at least hopefully.
Well, that's cool. You said that a part of the process is you have a lot of materials to go over.
Yeah.
So they make sure that you're very well. You've got a great understanding of the people that you're casting votes for, or potentially the books that you're going to be reviewing. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of time you're going to have to spend just going through all those materials.
It's been a couple of months so far. We have another month before all the ballots have to be in. I've gone through about 25 UPS boxes and have about 17 left to go through in the next couple of weeks. So I'm gonna, tomorrow I'm gonna dive in and open as many as I can and kind of look through everything and read what I can, and and hopefully, some people will be very happy.
Is that, I mean, what's the ballot process like? I mean, do they actually not only have all those materials for you to go through, but do they actually have kind of a ballot form?
Oh yeah, no, there's a ballot form. There's a spreadsheet letting you know all the physical books as well as the PDFs that have been sent in, links to websites. So when I say there's a lot of material, we're talking 300-400 books,
Wow.
At least. So you try, and a lot of it really is just based on your taste. Mm-hmm. So I try to be open to the material that I'm looking at. And there's a lot of stuff that doesn't appeal to me personally, but I try to give it a chance. And if it's just something that doesn't really speak to me, then I'll put it to the side. But if it's something that I think is interesting and different from what I would usually, because there's a lot of stuff that they have said that I would not be on my radar normally at all. So it's been a very interesting process to kind of have the opportunity to go through the myriad of talent, the diversity of product, just covering everything, absolutely everything. There've been some fantastic books that I would never even have thought of reading on my own that I've had the opportunity to take a look at.
That's cool. They always do say that in any jury process, the composition of the jury is what kind of affects what that year's awards presentation is like.
Right, absolutely.
In different cases too. But you're right. You kind of have to suspend your personal tastes a little bit going into it, but it's always going to have a factor. I'm sure that's why they probably have a very diverse group of people looking at each year's entries. So that's
absolutely
cool.
Absolutely. But I also, because I also teach at the School of Visual Arts, so it's sort of been like an equal effect, because it's helped looking at this diverse pile of product has given me an opportunity to kind of compare it to the students that I see coming up on the collegiate level, the things that they are interested in outside of mainstream superhero comics.
Very cool. Yeah, and I remember reading that you taught there. I didn't realize you still taught at School of Visual Arts. That's cool.
Yeah, I just finished my second year. So.
Congratulations. That's when I went to art school. That was one of the two schools I got accepted at, but I was scared to move to New York in 1986 and live at the YMCA. So I ended up going to the North Shore, in Massachusetts and going to
Okay.
school at art college.
That works.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even really blame you because I had the opportunity to go to the Art Institute of San Francisco. Just like, do I really want to move all the way to California? So, plus they didn't have a
in
comics
'86
program.
was a little different than it is today. It was it's felt a little more rough, at least coming from the Midwest. I don't know.
Right. No, I hear you.
But yeah, what do you think about what was it, the Art University, the one in Philadelphia, the Art Institute what's the state of affairs in art colleges these days when you see something like that?
Well, with that school, apparently, because I was reading the article, and with that school, it seemed like the accreditation board was trying to give them the opportunity to get their accreditation, but they opted to close. And I think a lot of it is more financially based than anything else. They seem to have like low enrollment and low alumni participation, and you need those things. If you don't have, like, the accreditation helps. Like, we just had to file for accreditation at SBA ourselves, so we had to basically the cartooning department, a couple of years ago, SVA split the illustration and cartooning departments into two separate BFA tracks. So each department had to do their own accreditation. So we had to figure out a criteria for accreditation this year, and then have the students follow that, and then make sure that was all submitted in time. And so yeah, with a school with an art school, especially when you have so many different types of majors, even though they're all arts related, and then you have to figure out the accreditation criteria and submit it to the state, and make sure all the paperwork is in, and make sure that you're financially stable enough. I mean, but that's kind of like the big thing is, like, we've had this glut recently of art schools all over the country basically closing, because I think a lot of it is just people are being dissuaded, I think, from participating in the arts more than anything else, which is disappointing. But you also have to look at how much the production aspect of different disciplines have changed over the decades. We've gone from, like, everything being drawn by hand to, unfortunately, people trying to use AI to, kind of lessen, the value of traditional and even digital digital artists, because even with digital art, there's still a human being involved, like generating these images. So yeah, it's really, really disappointing. So I'm actually glad that there are, a lot of institutions still, fighting the good fight, and a lot of kids who are, still interested in the arts and wanting to be visual artists. Having that emotional outlet as an artist is super important for a lot of people. I think that people forget that outside of everything else, art is an exploration of the psyche. Even when you're doing commercial work, you're introducing your viewpoint of the world, and you're trying to share your viewpoint of the world with other people through this, intangible sort of connection, emotional connection. You're trying to connect with people emotionally. If you're a fine artist, especially, if you're a comic book artist, then you're creating your own material, or even you're putting your own spin on the things that you love, the characters that you grew up loving. There's still that emotional, invisible umbilical cord between the artist and the viewer. Somewhere in between we kind of meet.
So what other comic professionals are currently working there? I mean, I know many many have passed through as
Oh
instructors.
yeah, no. Who's working? Alita Martinez is there.
Mhm.
Jason Little, uh, Josh Baer, Jason Smith, Nelson DeCastro, uh, Sal Cipriano is teaching lettering.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's a lot of people. Miss Lasco is teaching there now. Like they've been doing pretty heavy recruitment. You know,
Mhm.
Nathan Fox is the head of the MFA department at SVA. So you're getting like a world class education. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'd like to do a panel with all of those people.
Oh
That
yeah.
would be interesting to get their viewpoints, especially as it relates to SVA and the future of art in our lives.
I think that'd be fun, actually. Yeah, I think that'd be
Yeah,
a fun
no,
panel.
well, I'm honestly, we'll have to talk afterwards. Maybe we can organize something like that in the future. I'd enjoy that. That would
Yeah.
be fun. So let's get back to you though, because we've got we haven't even talked about your career in comics at
Right.
all. I think you just went past. I mean, what is it? How many years in comics now? Just over 30?
Ooh, okay. So technically, I'm gonna be 52. So technically, 35 years.
35 years.
Almost,
All
yes.
right.
So because my first job in comics was as an intern at DC when I was 17. Like I was still like my senior year of high school. So the first 6 months of my senior year of high school, I was cutting make readies and making photocopies and pasting old logos onto backing boards with rubber cement.
Did they pay you well at DC at that point?
No, that wasn't a paid internship. You got
that was
you got a stipend for lunch, and you got train fare, and you got school credit. And at the end of when my internship was sort of over, they gave me about $200 worth of art supplies. So, but the experience. I mean, it's much different now. Like my kid is doing an internship at a recording studio, and they get paid. Like it's not a lot, but they get something. So it's a much different experience. But that was such a great time for me. Like that's where I met Kevin McGuire. That's where I met Kyle Baker. That's where I met the late Keith Giffen. Like I used to hang out. This was like when Andy Helfer and Kevin Dooley were editing the Bwahaha Justice League. So I'm like hanging out in their smoke-filled office every afternoon, listening to these stories and like talking to these guys. And it was just such a great experience. And where I learned production, for the like real actual like in the ground production, like Jerry Acerno, who was a production artist and an inker, who taught me how to ink with a brush. I was working with Steve Beauvais, who was like a longtime production guy there, and Albert Ruiz, and it was just it was
it was worth the unpaid time.
It was worth the unpaid time because I wore a black fedora back then, because that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And every time Dick Giordano would see me in the hallway, he referred to me as Mr. Hat. Way before South Park, kids. So
mm-hmm. That's funny, man. So we've talked a lot about Keith Giffen, with his passing not too long ago. And what was it like getting to hang around with him and just to see him work? Because that was prime Giffen era for me. It was that late '80s period. So for you being there with him during that, I think that's awesome.
It was. So Keith was literally, like, I always say to people that every popular writer has their season in comics. Keith was, Jerry Conway was the showrunner. Keith was the showrunner. Jeff Johns was the showrunner. DC Mark Waid had his time, kind of like steering the boat. Like Jonathan Hickman, Jason Aaron, like all these guys kind of had their time. when Giffen was there, like he was such a like the difference between him and Mark DeMatteis whenever they were in the office, it was like watching an old vaudeville routine. Like, and Giffen, Keith was such like, to me he was sweet, but he was kind of grumpy sweet, sort of like George Carlin almost. And then, you know, so he would give me photocopies of his layouts from Justice League. So I would practice penciling from his layouts. So that was like the I had never seen anybody work that way before. And later on, like we ended up having opportunities to work together later on. Obviously, we worked together on 52, we worked together on Countdown. And, you know, so we had, you know, I knew what he was looking for artistically, but it's really funny. It's like he would give out like these little bits of advice. And one of the bits of advice he gave me once when I was at my internship is like, never volunteer for anything. So years later, when we're working on 52, he calls me up, and the first thing he says to me is, "What did I tell you? Never volunteer."
Yeah, God Loves Comics just mentioned even in his last social media post, he said, "Thank God I don't have to go to another New York Comic Con." I heard that about him. Like you said, friendly and yet you know, maybe a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, a little rough around the edges. You know? Yeah, but you know, for a 17-year-old, like a shy kind of, you know, 17-year-old who wanted to learn, and I think he could see that I wanted to learn and was willing to take time and talk to me, which, you know, I'll be honest, there were a lot of artists who came up to DC who weren't as friendly, you know. But like the people that I named were the ones who just kind of like said, "Hey, here, look at this, you know, read this, do this." You know, and then, you know, I would see them once I started like going to conventions later on. I'd see them at shows and we'd catch up, and I'd show them my portfolio and they would give me little bits of advice. And, you know, I think had I not had the opportunity to do the internship at DC, I don't think I would probably be in the same position that I am, because I kind of, you know, and I try to pay that back. This is part of the reason why I teach. You know, and why I've taught in the past, and why I am happy to do portfolio reviews, and why I'm willing to talk to people at conventions and willing to look at, you know, new creators' work, because I want to pay forward all the kindnesses that were given to me over the years.
That makes a lot of sense. That's fantastic, Jamal. I mean, more people should have that that approach to their work, right? To be able to kind of share and nurture in the next generation of creators.
It's super important. You know, it's just in general, like even if they don't do anything, like, or not say don't do anything, but even if they decide at some point that, you know, there are other ways to make a living, but they still enjoy drawing, like, you want to be encouraging. You want to give them something to shoot for. Because if we don't have like an endeavor in our lives, like not even like a goal, because the goals move and change, but you have something that you're shooting for. You have to have an endeavor that you're trying to make strides in. And I think it's important to in general just sort of encourage that in people.
I like to hear that. I do. I'm glad that's what kind of at your core. Yeah. But again, you had that wonderful opportunity. So it's like you had like you just named 6 or 7 creators who were willing to, you know, kind of give back to you a bit, which was probably a bit outside of the intern outline that you expected going in, that you were going to get to, you know, have experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't think when I started the internship that I would imagine like because basically the way that my day was broken down, I would spend the first half of the day in the production department. And then the second half of the day, I'd be helping people out in editorials. So I'd be helping out like Bob Greenberger open up FedEx boxes of artwork when he was doing the Star Trek books. And I'm like looking at all these beautiful like Star Trek pages from like Gordon Purcell and like, you know, Jerome Moore covers, and, you know, like listening to Bob like on the telephone with the people who are at Paramount, like, you know, going through like what needs to be changed and altered, and, you know, which actor doesn't like the shape of their head. Patrick Stewart, very particular about the shape of his head and how it was drawn in the Star Trek Next Generation comic.
Likeness is important, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, well, that's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine how much fun that would have been for you.
Oh yeah.
But is that kind of what led you into doing more work with DC? I mean, after the internship and you finished school, was it your relationships with the people at DC that then kind of got your foot in the door to work?
It wasn't the relationship that got my foot in the door. What happened was so I finished school, I go up to Canada for a while, I come back, you know, and I'm back in New York City and decide, you know, I'm gonna make a go out of doing this comic book thing. So I'm working at Jim Hanley's Universe. You know, I'm drawing comics, I'm going to conventions. I end up doing work for this company called Majestic Entertainment. And I worked for them for about 6 months until they filed Chapter 11 and stole everybody's money and artwork, and that all disappeared. But I had these photocopies of this because I was working with a writer named Jim Higgins, who used to be also an editor at DC. And then he wrote some stuff for Piranha Press and the Paradox Press, and like worked on like some of the early Vertigo stuff. And we were doing this book called Flashpoint, which was about this teenage superhero from Staten Island. So I had these Flashpoint pages that I had drawn, and I decided just, you know, back in the days when you can do this, I just made a bunch of photocopies, sent out packages to every editor's address that I could think of. And one of the packages went to Kevin DUDLEY at DC, who had remembered me from the internship and asked me to do 8 pages in an issue of Green Lantern. So that ended up being, wasn't the first work that I'd done in the industry, but it ended up being my first published work. Was Green Lantern 52. So this was right after Kyle Rayner gets introduced.
Sure.
So it was, you know, first job. I had to do 8 pages in 6 days. They came out horribly.
Do you still have them though? That's the
No, I don't. Unfortunately, those pages ended up, you know, being the victim of a vengeful ex-girlfriend.
No.
Yeah. So those are gone. Those pages are long gone, unfortunately. But
sorry to hear that.
So my first published work ended up being at DC, and then my relationship at DC just grew over, you know, the course of like 20 years, basically.
Wow. Now, would you have kept those pages? I mean, would they have been ones that you just want to, you know?
For nostalgia's sake, yeah, I would have kept those pages. I would have kept those pages. I have actually some pencil pages that I did for Larry Stroman and Todd Johnson when they were trying to get their company off the ground after the success of Tribe. And Larry had actually at Chicago Comic Con had given me back the pencil pages for the book, this book called W, that I was doing for them, that he had held on to for like 15 years, something like that.
Well, I think Dexter Vines is in the chat, and he said,
"Oh yeah,
Kevin gave him his first gig. That's cool."
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's interesting because, you know, I talk with a lot of artists, and I'm always curious about that first published artwork. You know, if they held on to it or if they let it go, or how. Yeah.
I hold on to a lot of stuff, but
yeah.
You know, it can be overwhelming. I mean, you know, I've been drawing comics most of the 35 years I've been drawing them since 1994. So that ends up being a lot of material, particularly if you're working monthly. So
yeah, Yeah, you did a lot of issues with Firestorm and then Supergirl. So
Yeah,
you had long runs in those. And so we don't have any Firestorm artwork, but we have some of the Supergirl artwork from 08,
yeah.
09, somewhere in that period. I mean, what was it like getting to work on, again, you got Christopher Reeve when you're 5, and then you're able to work on Supergirl, and I know a few issues of Superman. He made
Yeah.
his way into. I mean, how cool was that?
That
Getting
was that was all that had been my sort of bucket list
yeah.
item when I was working at DC, particularly when I was on contract. I always said to myself that I couldn't leave until I got to draw Superman.
Hmm.
So getting the opportunity, was daunting. I think it took me a while. Like, it took me a while because we had Superman appear in Supergirl, and it was never really completely like I liked what I was doing, but I was never completely satisfied with my take. And then by the time I got to do Superman 713,
Hmm.
like that was a moment where it sort of clicked, like, oh yeah, this is my Superman. Like all the other appearances of Superman that I had drawn in various books over years, like I was still kind of working out, like, what makes him work for me visually as an
Hmm.
artist. And then like that was sort of like the point where it's just like, okay, there we go, now we're completely happy. It's not like I was unhappy necessarily, it's just you're always striving to get better. You want, you want your version, you know and then your version kind of, even like now, my version in my head just kind of changes and morphs as I'd like to think my work has improved over the years. Like, I'm bringing in different energy sometimes to a project, and I'd like to try and tackle the character again at some point, knowing what I know now, even more so than like a decade ago.
Right. That's good. So, as far as working with inkers, I mean, have you when you have in the
Mm.
past? I mean, have you kind of selected them? Do they get assigned to you? How do you tend to
Um,
work
well,
with the
I mean,
finishers in the business?
well, it would depend. Sometimes you ask, and it really depends on people's availability.
Hmm.
More often than not, I tend to work with a lot of the same people.
Hmm.
So, and they're either introduced to me or they get assigned to me. Keith Champagne and I worked together for a few years. And Keith was somebody that had been assigned to me, and we had clicked. Same thing with uh, my anchor on Supergirl. Why am I blanking on his name? Uh, the two anchors on Supergirl. We had
I know I've got a tab open here somewhere.
yeah,
So let me find that.
because he's not inking anymore, which is a shame. He's like a really uh, John Sabal.
Spot.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
John Sabal. So John Sabal and I worked together for a few years, and really like John's take on my work was so different than everybody else's take, and but it worked so well. And I think it really, like, a lot of it really depended on the editor, like what the editor saw and what the editor was kind of going for. um and I've worked with people like Rob Hunter, I've worked with Mark Deering. I've been working with Juan Castro for over a decade at this point. Like, we're just kind of like tied together at this point. But I've worked with Rob Stull, on Firestorm. I've worked with Robin Riggs. I've had a lot of luck with a lot of the anchors, a lot of really good luck with a lot of the anchors. I haven't worked with Dexter yet. I'm going to make that happen at some point.
There you go. That's good. Dexter and I've done a few shows in the past. We always have a good time. But I love Dex's inks as well. But that's
Oh
cool.
yeah.
It really, when you look at it, it's like the inker taking something a little different, a view of how your pencils are done. So when you're like a lot of the pieces I'm looking at that we're selling today,
Mhm.
you clearly use a lot of blue pencil to
Right.
kind of block things out. I mean, do you give tight finished pencils to the inkers when typically, or do you kind of work that out with the inker in terms of what do they like to see
No, when I ink for other people, I am obsessively tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm inking myself, I tend to be a little bit looser, but I'm going for a specific sense of completeness.
Hmm.
With with I tend to be very methodical in my approach towards pages. There's a lot of prep work. There's layouts, thumbnails. I do a lot of pre-prep research. When I'm doing my layouts, I include digital elements as well. But it all goes into the finished page. So if I'm inking for other people, and there's I think part of that is, even though I ink myself, I've never, I spent most of my career just being a penciler.
Hmm.
And I hate to put it this way, but there's no other way to kind of put it. It kind of stems from a conversation that I had with Larry Stroman when I was working with him. And he said to me once that you have to make sure that your work is idiot proof, that you can hand it off to any inker and you will always shine through. Like the essence of who you are will always shine through. Like a really good inker is able to enhance what you've already done, what you've
Hmm.
already laid down on the board. But I also think it depends on the inker that you're working with. Like if you were telling me that Bill Sienkiewicz or Kevin Nowlin were inking my work, I'd just be like, okay, here's the layouts, have fun. Because
Right, right. Well,
you
it's I get what you're saying, because they're going to leave their mark on it one way or another.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
absolutely.
no matter how detailed your pencils will be, you can always tell a Kevin Nolan ink page, right?
Oh
I
yeah, no,
mean,
I worked with Jerry Ordway on an issue of Green Lantern Corps and went into the offices and they showed me the pages. It was like this perfect amalgamation of my style and Jerry's style. It was beautiful and kind of eerie at the same time. Like there was parts where it looked more like Jerry than it looked like me, but he didn't really change what I'd drawn. It was just the Jerry Ordway polish,
mhm.
you know? And I have one splash page from that issue that I am never letting go of. And it
That's
is literally like one of the most beautiful things that I own, like in my personal collection. Like can't I know, but you'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands.
that's fantastic, man. I mean, so do you collect a little bit, or do you
I do. I try to. I don't have a lot of pieces because you know original art is expensive.
yes.
Original art is expensive. But I have that. I have that piece. I have a Nightwing sketch from Jose Luis Garcia Lopez that I
Sweet.
picked up at a show years ago. I have a Pat Gleason Noble Causes cover that I picked up years ago. I've got Oz sketch, a Scarecrow sketch that I got for my kid from David Peterson of the Scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, so I've got little like bips and bobs and cool things. A few cool
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah, David's one of my. I love David's work.
Yeah,
He's
no, absolutely beautiful stuff.
well, that's awesome. But I love hearing stuff like that. I mean, to have Ordway be his work, because it's probably something you never would have expected, right? But then you
Oh
see
no,
it,
but
you fall in love with it, and you just love it. I think that's cool, because there's guys like Sinnott, for instance, who
mhm.
he just made everybody look good
Oh yeah,
and and cleaned and polished and everything. But I think that's neat that a guy like Ordway can kind of leave his mark on there, still not, but affect your artwork in a little bit of a different way. It gives it almost like a nostalgic feel, because Ordway, when you look at his artwork, I think it sometimes takes you back, right? Because he's
oh
been in the
yeah,
business for so long.
oh
Same
yeah,
thing
but
with
but
like.
in a lot of ways, Jerry is my Superman artist. Like
Mhm.
he's the artist who was on the Superman, like that period with him and Byrne and Kerry Gamble. But I was looking at Adventures of Superman more than anything else, and to me, he is my Superman artist first and foremost, even more than like Swan or Wayne Boring or Byrne or Stuart Immonen. Like, that's when I think of Superman, he's the first person that pops into my head.
That's cool. Yeah, it's all about the era, right? When you're really getting into comics, right? Because for me, I love Kurt Swan's work. I think we've here we have maybe four or 5 or 6 pages from Swan. I love it. I mean, it's every time you see it, it's like it takes me back to when I was young, and I'm more of a Marvel guy, but the DC stuff that I read was usually Superman, and it was typically Swan's work, and I can't get enough of it, because it's all good. I mean, the thing is, you could own 100 Swan pages, and they'd all be equally.
This is true. This is very, very true. Not a dog in the bunch. That's cool. Now you have, you know what? So I was going to. We'll talk about some of this other stuff when we get to look at the artwork, because you've worked with a lot of different publishers, obviously, with Ahoy Comics and Black Mass Studios. I mean, you've been everywhere. IDW, Marvel, DC, Image, Archie, right? I mean, you, and that's probably part of you're very versatile. I mean, I try to be.
Well, why don't we? I guess we could go into the sale, because I know we're going to talk a lot. I think there's just going to be a lot of fun things to talk about when we look at the artworks and the periods. And I tried to keep stuff grouped together. Like, we're going to start off with the Supergirl artwork in the issue order and that sort of thing. And I think there's plenty of things to discuss there. But yeah, so for those of you who are watching, I didn't even say at the beginning of the show that we are doing an interview and an art sale, but of course we are. That's we promoted it for a while. So we've got what do we got? We have 20 pieces of art to look at today, Jamal, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Some of it's current, some of it's from 08. I know the G.I. Joe stuff was from 2013, 2014, in that era. So some vintage stuff, which is always kind of cool to see, digging things out of the archive. Now, in the past, I mean, when you go to shows, do you take a lot of artwork with you?
I do, more so now than the past like decade or so, only because I was unfortunately part of Caden's Comic Art, and that all imploded. So they were my art rep for a long time.
They were around a long time.
Yeah, they were around for a long time, and I still consider Paolo a friend. It's just sort of an unfortunate situation, but yeah. So recently, I've been bringing more original art to shows.
How do you? I mean, like with the offerings we have today. I mean, when you go to a show, do you just kind of pull out a portfolio and then just start filling it, or do you have what encompasses?
Oh no, I have like 3 portfolios right now that are all filled with original art. And then, when I sell pages or covers, I just, go through the archive and cycle new stuff in. And, because you never know what somebody's going to be interested in. You never know what's going to sell. Yeah.
Do you do a lot of sketching at shows?
I do, actually. And I think that's probably part of the reason why, like, for a while, I was trying to, like, bring more prints to shows, but I always did better with, like, doing sketches and selling originals than I ever did with prints. So I think there's like that personal connection with people also. Like some people like to hang around and talk. Some people just want to see, they want to see you draw your version of their favorite character. And I think it's fun. It's fun either way. So
that's right. I just threw a link in the chat for your page on Comic Art Fans that shows the collected work that people have. I think there's almost 600 pieces on CAF. And a lot of them are convention sketches. That was neat to see, because some guys don't sketch a lot, right? So all you see is published pieces or those sorts of things. But you had on your page, as far as like the most viewed artwork that's on CAF, it was a healthy mix of commissions and published work.
Yeah, usually depending on the show, like I end up doing like probably like 20-30 sketches per show. Like,
do you take them back to the room? I mean, to do that?
No. I do. I can't work on stuff back in the room. I can't. No, with the show, I would rather do it on the floor, because it just feels like too much responsibility. Like to have, it's like, and then it's a con. You kind of want to hang out with people that you don't get to see that often, and you don't really want to be like up in your room unless you absolutely have to. There have been times when I've had to work on pages that were due in the room. Like I did the Motor City Comic Con,
Mhm.
and was like had to do a cover for the Wrong Earth, pages for another project. So I was like, they're going to the restaurant downstairs at the hotel and getting my dinner and going up to the room, and Law
Going
and
back to
Order's
work.
playing in the background, because that's the only thing that seems to be on anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, a lot of artists don't like to work during the show, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they feel it's just too distracting, to have somebody talking to you while you're doing your work. But if you can get 20 pieces done in a weekend, and most of it during the convention show floor hours, I mean, that's a talent in and of
Yeah,
itself.
I tend to have the gift for gab, so
Cool. Well, listen, let's go back to the art
okay.
sales side of things. I'll give everybody the scoop on how we handle art sales around here if you haven't been on one of these with us before. I do have all of the art in hand, all 20 pieces. Anybody who claims an artwork today, you're going to shoot me an email after the show. And if you're watching after the show's live episode, you can email me if that you see a piece that doesn't get claimed, and I'll let you know if it's still available, and we can work things out that way. I'll have the artwork that doesn't get sold during the show posted to my CAF as well, and so people can reach out to me through that too. As far as claims go, if you claim any artwork, we'd like to get the payment within 48 hours. We prefer to have payments sent via Zelle or Venmo. I'll even take a personal check if you drop it in the mail on Monday, just to avoid any fees. If you need to go and use PayPal, we always charge a 4% fee for U.S. orders and 5.5% for international. So like to avoid those whenever we can. And as far as shipping goes, that's not included in the price of the artwork that you see today. Anything in the well, I'm not gonna say continental U.S. Any domestic U.S. shipping is $30, and anything international, which includes Canada, is $65. And everything will be packed here at CAF HQ. We as everybody knows, I've shipped out a lot of packages to many of you. So we ship everything in Masonite, and I wouldn't say it's bulletproof, but we do our best to make sure that the artwork arrives safely in your hands. And I'm always proud of that. We're this weekend, Jamal. We did this thing called a mystery sketch a couple weekends ago, and the artworks finally come in. I work with a couple of reps who are overseas. And so rather than them shipping the artwork, they just put all of their artists' work together and ship it to me. So I've got about 85 to 100 packages that are sitting on the bar right now. We have to finish taping up and shipping out. So yeah, we've got it down to a science here.
All right.
And I'd say your artwork arrived. I don't think I've gotten as big a package before.
Well, that's because of two of the pieces.
Those two pieces are huge. Yeah, I showed them off on Thursday. They're like 19 by 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're massive. But yeah, let's see. Phil knows how to. I did not pay Samuel Rojas $20 to write that. Nice try. But yeah, so that's the scoop on everything, everybody. So we'll go ahead and dive into some of the artwork. And remember, if you want to claim something, just type the word claim and the lot number. Everything's got there's 20 lots. They all have a lot number on the slide. You'll see it right there. Just type claim and the lot number. A lot of people like to wait until they see all 20 pieces to figure out what's available before they make a claim. You can claim something at any time after you've seen it. That's cool with us. And yeah, I think that probably about covers it. Other than the one thing I would tell everybody is that if you're watching on YouTube, there, like right below where my name is, there's the word live. If you click that, that will actually move you as close to live as we are in the chat and some of the other viewers. Because if you join the show late, it buffers on YouTube, so you could be like 5-10 seconds behind us, and you'll be wondering why artwork's been claimed and you haven't even seen it. You'll see it in the chat. People will say claim lot 1, and you haven't even seen it, because again, we're a few seconds into the future already. But if you've joined a little later, that can happen. So click live, and if you're on your desktop computer, you can hit refresh on the browser. That'll make you as live as possible too. But I usually forget to tell them that, Jamal. And a couple pieces in where people are like, how are people seeing stuff that I'm not seeing? Anyway, so we can dive right in there. Let's see. Those large ones are Paul Pope sized pieces. That is very true. Paul has a penchant for drawing on probably about the same size, those 19 by 24 sheets. Yeah. Alberto's bought a few large pieces of art from us in the past. We've even had to roll one of his up one time because it was too large. A Adam Kubert cover at one point. But anyway, let's get this thing started. So we're going to
All
start
right.
talking about some Supergirl artwork. And like I said, I'm going by earliest issue numbers first.
Yes.
So first piece we've got is from Supergirl, issue 36, page 17, priced at $400, 11 by 17. It was funny when you sent me the scan for this. It was in pencil. This is from 08. So you just didn't have a scan of the ink page?
No, I didn't have a scan of the ink version, and I actually hadn't. That's one of the pieces of the pages that I had gotten back from Cadence. So yeah. So, but that issue, that's one of my favorite issues of Supergirl, but also one of the tragic issues because they're dealing with the death of Kara's father, Zor-El. And the Sterling Gates and I were working on a series. We had just come on the series that this was our third issue, so 34. This was our third issue together, and we were just starting to really kind of get into a groove. And again, this was like the first real opportunity I had at that point to draw Superman in a comic. So you kind of like a classic Superman, still kind of like working it out in my head, like what do I want my Superman to look at. But at this point, like I was really starting to get a handle on what I wanted from Kara as a character as well. And I was just like really, so this is me and Keith Champagne, and this was again, like early on in our run, we're still it usually, for me, like when I'm working on a series, it usually takes me about 4 issues of just sort of like figure things out if it's not something that I'm creating.
Mm-hmm.
So you're figuring out what the world is within the story and how you want to handle the characters, and this is still kind of still have like the training wheels on a little bit at this point. Things start to, I hate to use the term like things start to improve afterwards, but I feel like my take on the characters start to solidify at this point, and then just kind of improve from there.
Very cool. You got the curl on
Superman. You can't not have the curl. The curl has to be there.
But so we this one's available, and Samuel said I really like the new Krypton storyline.
Yeah, no, that was a great it was hectic. Like that entire period was hectic because you're doing crossovers with 3 other books and trying to schedule everything out. You're like waiting for artwork that hasn't come in yet, and in my case, like I was always kind of a little faster than the other pencilers that were working on the series, but then kind of in my own head competing with Pete Woods, who was drawing Action Comics at the time.
Did you ever have to make alterations because of those types of crossover?
A few, if we had enough time, but usually at that point you're so far up against the shipping schedule that you don't always have the opportunity to make big changes, like big wholesale changes, unless they were absolutely like you have to change that. Like because originally when they were doing New Krypton, one of the pages I ended up having to change, I think was actually in the first issue of Supergirl that I did, was when I had originally drawn Nightwing and Flamebird, the Kryptonian Nightwing and Flamebird. It was supposed to be, story-wise, it was supposed to be Connor Kent, Superboy, and Linda Danvers, Supergirl, and then they changed it to Chris Kent and Thara, the Supergirl's friend from Krypton. So I had to redraw them as Chris as a younger character than I initially drawn him. But because I was going off of Alex Ross's character design for both characters.
Of course. Did you redraw the whole page, or did you?
No. I just had to change the faces. So
it wasn't a huge amount of work.
No, it wasn't too bad.
All right. Well, that was lot 1. We can take a look at lot 2 then. This is from issue 38, page 9, and priced at $350.
That was a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, challenging.
It was very challenging because I had a very specific idea of how I like, especially with the third panel, like her dropping into the water. Because usually when somebody would do something like that, it would probably be seen from like either above where you would just see like the splash, or from like, you know, like a horizontal panel. Yeah, all of the pens, all of this is traditional pencil and ink. Everything is traditional pencil and ink.
Right.
So
And that's, one thing I should point out, because you can't see it, is, I mean, you can see the blue line pencil on pretty much all of the pages.
yeah,
Like on this one, when they're scanned, they kind of drop out. You can almost see it in that middle image, like in her right arm,
yeah,
that's up near her head. But it's a little more. It's obviously a little more prevalent in the actual originals that I have in front of me here. But
yeah.
yeah, all traditional.
But yeah, no, I did. But I wanted to get that feeling of her being dropped into this large body of water and like, not really, like kind of struggling, but not really. But like, just like I was always in mind of like, there's, you know, scenes from like stuff like Splash, you know,
Mhm.
underwater scenes. I wanted, because I'd never seen anybody do that. Like, you know, have like a character fall into water in comics, have a character fall into water, then being surrounded by all these air bubbles and, you know, weightlessness and everything. So
Well, you got that here.
yeah.
Definitely. Sorry, I'm just kind of comparing the published piece to the line art. Not bad coloring job.
No, no, no. That's Ni Rufino was the
Uh,
colorist on Supergirl at the time.
that explains it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fantastic. All right, so that's lot two. What do we got for lot three? Something from issue 42,
Yeah.
and this is at 275 again on a 11 by 17, like all of these pages are.
Hmm. And yeah, that was when I was talking before about like, by this point, like I knew what I wanted from Kara, and I knew how I wanted to present the character, and you know how, you know, my, because the thing about my take on Supergirl was I wanted to present her as just, you know, being normal, you know, just a normal teenager ultimately, like cute and fun and bubbly, but not overtly sexy or overtly sexualized. And you know, that was very important to both Sterling and I to kind of present her. Like in my head, the idea for her as a character was she's just this kid whose entire world gets taken away from her. Then she wakes up on a different planet. Her cousin is the greatest superhero in the world, and it's automatically assumed that she's going to join the family business. So, you know, the whole idea was just kind of like present her as being, trying to take on the responsibility that's kind of been thrust upon her, but you know, still being relatively a normal kid. And this exchange is between her and Lana Lang, where they've moved in together. She's been living with Lana. You know, she's trying, you know, she's got a secret identity. You know, she's trying, you know, and Lana is hiding the fact that she thinks she's dying. You know, you find out, you know, later on, spoilers, that she's actually been taken over by the insect queen. But, you know, and then at the same time, like I wanted, you know, my approach for Lana in this scene was we had been building up to the fact that Lana has been sick. So I wanted Lana to look a little thinner than I present her in the first issue that they're together in issue 34. And then, you know, have her look a little bit thinner, you know, but not completely emaciated. Like there's clearly something wrong. And I think, you know, one of the big things has always been important to me. One of the things, you know, you pick up from being a fan of people like, you know, Kevin McGuire or Steve Rude or Garcia Lopez or Ordway or, you know, Steve Gordon, or, you know, it's emotion, you know, getting the appropriate emotion across, you know, getting the this genuine sense of warmth between these two characters in that scene, and then having like the sudden drop in the last panel, where she's getting this news from her doctor. Just emotion is very important. It's a very big part of the overall presentation of my work.
And as you learn a lot from Kevin McGuire, right?
Oh yeah,
facial expressions and things. That's
oh
for
yeah.
Sure. Let's see here. Lot 4. Again, we've got a few pages from Supergirl. So this is from issue 43.
Yeah.
Page 5.
So yeah, so this is after Zor-El's death and after the militarization, basically, of New Krypton, as they decide that they need to defend themselves from otherworldly invaders. And again, this goes back to this whole the whole idea of getting the emotions across of these characters. And Kara's mother becoming the head of the Security Council, and Kara being reintroduced to this world that she thought she'd left behind, of having to be somebody's daughter again, and having to kind of navigate around being around other Kryptonians, and sort of relearning what it is to be a part of Kryptonian society. So I think this is around the time that John Small started inking me. So yeah, so the first time that I saw John's work, I wasn't really sure what to take. Like, it's such a beautiful line, but normally when I've worked with inkers, they have a tendency to be more brush heavy with me. Mm-hmm. They tend to give my work a softer treatment, similar to, I would say, like a Joe Rubenstein, or the way Dave Stevens would have inked himself a lot. There's a certain softness to my work that even when I'm making myself, I sort of have to contend with, because it can become mushy in the wrong hands.
Well, probably comes back to your need for making sure that there's nothing left to chance, right?
Exactly.
Which you're going to guarantee, what the inker, at least what they're given and what they can interpret. That's cool. That's interesting. And in mid-project to have to switch inkers, but it seems like it went pretty seamlessly.
Oh yeah, no, it worked out very well. And I actually learned, I learn a lot from everybody that I collaborate with, either with writers, with artists, or with inkers, or colorists, or letterers. And I try to take away a little bit from everything. And I learned so much from just looking at what John was doing over and applying it to my own inking work as well, on certain projects.
Yeah, you mean John? Is it Sibal?
John Sibal, yeah.
Sibal. I think I've always said Sibal. So now that's probably my Midwestern. Now I'm gonna remember Sibal.
Yes.
I'm not gonna get that wrong again, because we talk a lot about professionals on a couple of the shows, and I know I've been mispronouncing that for a very long time.
Oh, I mispronounce people's names all the time. That's okay.
Let's see here, lot 5. And again, from Supergirl, this is issue 55. I had to read this issue because I'm like, what prompted that punch?
Bizarro Girl.
Right. You see the image and it's so striking, obviously. But I'm like, yeah, I had to go back and read the whole issue just to see, how did that actually come about? But great composition on this one. A lot of times you'd look at this and think the artist would approach it with a with the whole go for a whole splash page, right? And not have any other panels set in here. But you don't really need that. I mean, you really frame this thing nicely, and it takes you from really it works perfectly. I think the way you did it, I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things that I try to keep in mind with my own work, and I try to emphasize with my students, is composition and flow. Having elements that lead the eye from one panel to another directionally, either through character direction or through composition. So in this case, using the figures of Supergirl and Dr. Light to lead you to panel 2, and then using the angle of panel 2 to lead you to panel 3, and then having panel 3 and panel 4 on the same tier, gives them equal weight. So when you go to the next page, which is Bizarro Girl's ship launching from the hole in the ground, that's like the big splash image of that page as well. So you go from big splash image to interstitial to another big splash image, and it kind of keeps the reader engaged and keeps the eye moving around.
Oh, it's fantastic, and I like the storyline as well. So did Jewish Dragons, mentioning the Bizarro storyline.
It was fun. It was fun. The only reason why I didn't get to finish it was because they wanted me to do 58 and 59, so I had to jump ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I was looking up on Comix.org, it wasn't a complete, where you were, started in what was it, in the mid 30s, and then into the mid 50s. You did have to jump around just a little bit.
Yeah, there were times when Supergirl 50, which was a double-sized issue, they had to pull me off so that I could do that. And then, when we were wrapping up our run, I did 56, and then Bernard Chang did 57, and I came back on for 58 and 59.
Very cool. Now we're so this is actually the last Supergirl titled piece. So the next one, of course, features Supergirl prominently, but this is from Teen Titans.
Yes. So this was actually the first time that I drew Kara. I actually, before working on the actual title. So this is when Dan DiDio was writing Teen Titans. So that was like so you can tell by the belt, that's like the Ale Garza era Supergirl with the chunky jeweled belt.
Yeah, I thought this one was cool. I didn't. I actually got the published image this morning. So when you're looking at a title page like that, you kind of wonder what's filled in the center there.
Right.
But yeah, all the heads are drawn on this one too. So this is page 1 to that issue, and it came out. Yeah, terrific page, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. You got that right, man. But that's interesting. First time drawing her.
First time drawing her. Not the first time drawing Supergirl.
Right.
But the first time drawing that version of Kara.
No, very, very cool. So this was lot 6, priced at $4.50, and yeah, the coloring on this one is pretty vibrant, especially on the lettering. All right, now this next one. This is from Infinite Frontier. It was issue 0. At least I'm pretty sure that was the issue number. This was page 29, and it's priced at $4.50 as well. Lots of great action in this one.
So this is this is actually really funny. Because I hadn't done a lot of work at DC up until that point. Like I've been busy. So when they asked me to do this, and it was the opportunity to work with Josh Williamson, it was presented to me as, hey, we've got this, I think it was we had this 8-page Superman story. I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to draw a Superman. It's like it's the new Superman. It's John Kent. I was like, okay, can I ink myself? It's like, yeah, you can ink yourself. So this is me inking myself on the pages, and this is me as usual throwing in everything and the kitchen sink. So so I had to step in and put my foot in it, to show them young cats how it's done.
Exactly. Yeah, that's interesting, because I know there was just something different about it. I assumed it was the inker. I didn't check to see if you had inked yourself on that one, but well, I would assume when you're really gonna take it to the level that you want to take it to. I mean, you didn't have to draw all of
no, I did not.
That's the debris there, but you went all out and did it.
No, but see, that's my happy place, though, Bill. That's like, I went from a guy who, in the beginning of his career, hated drawing backgrounds to a guy who absolutely cannot do a page without backgrounds in it somehow. Like every single panel has to have backgrounds in it, some background, something,
Yeah, no, I get it, and I love the way you kind of angled the panels there to kind of
Oh yeah,
your
it's again, it's
perspective
all
in the top panel. That's
yeah,
fun.
it's all about direction and flow. It's all about driving the reader's eye around the page.
Yeah, that's. I mean, this is one that you could show the students.
Yeah,
As a prime example.
I also take my work into my students to first class every semester, and I say, "This is what I do. Don't be me. I'm an insane person."
That's got to be good for them.
It
Most
is.
18-year-old or 19-year-olds don't get to, they don't know what comic art is, right? To actually get them to see what goes into making a book is a great thing. Oh, and we have a claim from Mike Cruz. Thank you, Mike. All right, that is fantastic. Mike has broken the ice for us. We appreciate that.
Yay!
And the piece 100% by
100, yes, 100% me, 100% completely traditional. It's a mix of brush, quill, brush pen, rapidograph, everything.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
All right, well, here's something from Superman. We can switch over to that. So yes. 714, you were talking about this earlier. And yes. Again, this was an issue that I wanted to read through as well. And I don't always do that. But, after seeing the image, I felt like, I need to know the story, and what was going on here and why, what was the space they were in, all of that. So it was good. It was a great read.
Yeah. So for people who haven't read the story, this was the end of the Superman walking around America storyline that they did. Written by Chris Roberson. And they brought me in to do the last 2 issues. It was right before the new 52. So, again, it's that bucket list sort of thing where I finally had figured out how I wanted to present my version of Superman. And it was actually kind of like a whirlwind time because I was working on these issues, and then I also did 2 pages in Action Comics 900. And, so it was like just this period where I was finally getting a chance to really draw Superman my way. And you got to have like that classic like Superman hands on the hips, the hip shot,
Mm-hmm. Well, he was he had a lot of questions at this moment in the storyline. So, and he looks like that. He definitely looks like the he's in charge and unhappy with the situation.
Yep.
No, this is cool. So, I mean, when for 714, I mean, did you have any like Superman title specific work before this? Because I was trying to think back to when I was looking at comics.org to see any like Action Comics titles or not.
No, just the 2 pages in Action Comics 900, and then Superman 713 and 714. And I sort of came into 713. It was a little bit of a rush job. Because it was running late, but I was happy, and a lot of it was of 713 was splash pages. So, and then they had this contest where a reader got drawn into the comics. I had to do that as well, and you're working under the conditions that you can work, but I was trying to do the best possible work that I could under those conditions. So when we finally got to do 714, I had a proper amount of time to just kind of do things my way.
Very cool. So why was 713 mostly splash pages? Was that
it was
that way, or was that your decision?
It was the way that the story was written. It was basically presented as So Clark Kent has decided that he's not going to be Superman anymore, but he's going to interview this guy in Seattle who looks a lot like Elliot Megan, and he's kind of like they're talking about the good that Superman does. So there's like splash images of like Superman. He rescues a cat in one page. He stops a school shooter. He unmask an evil politician who turns out to be an alien, stuff like that.
Sure. Well, very cool. Let's see here. So switching gears a little bit, we're going to take a look at this. Now,
Yeah.
I was trying to get what flash cover this was from. I saw it on your blog where you mentioned something about it related to a show, I think.
Yes, it was drawn for a convention in Connecticut called Comic-Con. And yes, so
now I see, because it was Comic-Con with two N's at the end.
yes,
Now I understand.
yes. So yeah, so that was the first real opportunity that I had to kind of like, I had drawn. I'm a big Flash fan anyway, but I had drawn him in like little bits and things, but I hadn't gotten to do the actual book, like the actual solo book at any point.
Mhm.
Although I had drawn Wally in Tangent Superman's Reign and in Teen Titans. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, this was just sort of like my take on Barry Allen, basically.
Well, it came out really, really well.
Yeah.
And the coloring on it's fun too.
Yeah, that was Tom Chu actually colored that for me.
Oh, sweet. So let's see. We got this one at $1,000 on 11 by 17, like all of the other pages you've seen already. And what year was this? Was it 2010?
No, this was like, I want to say 2003, 2000.
Oh, that early. Oh, okay.
It was early. It was early. I've had this one for a while. Or maybe it was later. I can't remember. Like, whatever the first Comic-Con show was, I can't remember what year it was.
We can go back and check that blog.
Yes.
And by the way, everybody, now you might not know this, but Jamal does have a calf gallery. And I think you've had it. It's been around a long time. I don't think you updated it at all, or you haven't been in there in too long. But I know I think you've logged in the last year or something. So you come back to the site every now and again.
I go and check it.
But yes, so nicely done on this one. And yeah, I have to go look at your blog again to see. But you know what? I'm looking at your calf gallery. It says your avatar says 20 years with your logo. So you got to go up. I think we need to get that updated.
Yeah, I
know. Let's see here. So hey, I saw Justin in the chat. Justin from Spidey. It's another fellow guy hanging out on YouTube who does a lot of good work. Gets to hang out with a lot of artists. Nice to have you with us, Justin. Let's keep going here. What do we got for lot 10? Because I've kind of forgotten the order here. Oh, that's right. It's a Snickers ad page, and I know we've got two of these. So a Snickers ad. How do you get a job like this? Because you and I both have grew up on the the Hostess cupcake, the Hostess Twinkie ads in comics, and here you get to do a Snickers 2-page ad for DC.
Yes. So this was this is around the same time that I was doing Infinite Frontier. I've got a standard rule for myself that I've sort of adopted over the last decade or so. If it's weird, I'll probably do it. So when I was approached by DC Creative Services to see if I wanted to do the Snickers, I was like, I can do that. That sounds like fun. Again, can I ink myself? Yeah, go ahead. Righteous. Let's do this. So again, this is me probably doing way more work than I need to, like tracking down as much reference for the International Space Station as I could possibly find.
Yeah.
Like, I did not have to do all of this. I just chose to because, again, I'm a crazy person.
And you're inking yourself on this one. So, I think like on those solar, I couldn't find the published pieces for these. That's why I don't have a color image in here. But, whether those are solar panels or whatnot. Yeah. I mean, I could see another, somebody else maybe, taking a little bit of liberty there and not drawing every panel in there. But you threw it all.
I threw it all in.
Not bad. So this was the first page from the Snickers ad, and then the second page, and I assume it was just a 2-pager.
It was just a 2-pager, yeah.
All right, so this was it, and you can see the Snicker bar floating around there in the second to last panel. That they probably threw an actual Snicker bar image or something on there to make it look right, but very fun.
So again, a lot of research. That entire interior is completely based on the actual interior of that module.
Yeah, well, I see that somebody mentioned earlier when Dexter was in the chat. I think Jeff Wedding, who's a regular around here, a good friend of mine, he said that Dex should get you some Star Wars art that then he could ink. You know, you look at something like this. Clearly, you do a lot of research, right? And if you were to do anything in the Star Wars world, you would have to do a lot of research to get the interiors right. I mean, you'd be the man for the job.
I plan to.
Have you ever gotten to work in anything Lucas based?
Not yet, but maybe.
All right. Well, let's hope so soon. And well, again, you see something like this, that's cool. I mean, you want to get it right.
Oh yeah, no, it was fun. It was, listen, I only do this to myself. Well, okay, that's not true. I do this to Juan too, but if I'm willing to put in this much insanity myself, I like working with people who are just as insane as I am and willing to put in just as much work as I do.
Well, this turned out very, very well.
Thank you.
So we're going to switch gears again. Now we're like moving into some Archie work. I thought this was pretty cool. I mean, and this was a free comic book day cover, and I should have wrote down the year because I had it right in front of me, and I didn't.
That was the year before last.
So it was recent, right?
Yeah, this is the year before last. So yeah.
How do you get it? Had you worked with Archie before that though, right?
Oh yeah, no, I've done cover. I've been doing covers for Archie since 2013, like 2012, 2013. So yeah, so every once in a while they'll call me up, specifically if it's something leaning more towards like the superhero side, and they'll ask if I'm available and if I can fit it in. I'm totally willing to do it. I love working with those guys.
Well, this is nice, and free comic book day. That's I hate to say it, I have actually never gotten to a free comic book day event.
Really?
And, yeah, it's terrible. I don't know how I've managed to avoid that all these years, but I've never gone on free comic book day. I've gotten books, right? When you go there, go to the shop after the fact. Right. But yeah, never gone there during the day, and it's. I mean, have you gone out to like signings and stuff at shops at all?
I've done signings in the past for free comic book day. I haven't done them in the last couple of years, only because like either it lands on an inopportune day or just like I just can't get to the shop. I don't really have an excuse because my closest shop is like 3 blocks away. So. And they
know you're there.
Yes, they know they know me. They know I'm there. I usually kind of go in, just say hi, pick up my books and dip. But
so they know that they could get you.
They could get me, and so they know exactly where I live. That's how bad it is.
Well, cool. So this one's lot 12 at $900. The Archie cover from a free comic book day from a year ago. And then we have another Archie cover to show off for lot 13, Archie versus Predator, number 3 cover. And, again, you're talking about, I mean, they had to ask you this, and then I assume you just had to do it, right? I mean, it's a little off the wall.
Absolutely. It was the only way that I would do it, and it was an opportunity to not just do the line art but color it myself as well. So I was able to get exactly the mood that I wanted out of the piece.
That's cool. And where did I read that? There was a couple pieces on CAF that were colored by you.
Yeah.
I don't know how I stumbled across them. So have you ever done it where it's been, do you do a lot of your own coloring, or is that just
usually these days, like all the Raw and Earth covers and the Dudley DATSON covers, I've colored them all myself. Occasionally I'll work with Chris Sotomayor on something. If I have the time, I would prefer to color myself. I actually did a 3-page Teen Titans go to camp thing years ago that I ended up coloring the interiors on as well. So, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I actually find coloring very cathartic. So I really do enjoy coloring myself, and learning about color and learning about mood and lighting and playing with different things. So it's like I find it refreshing, especially since for me, like the the penciling is the penciling and inking is, I love it, but it feels mostly like a mechanical process for me.
Hmm.
Like the most difficult part for me usually is the concept and the storytelling aspect, figuring out how I want to tell the story. By the time I get to the penciling or the penciling and inking stage, and even the inking stage, like I enjoy inking myself. I find it kind of restful and peaceful because like all the thinking has already been done by the time I've gotten to that stage. Now it's just sort of like, coming in and sticking the landing.
Sure, and I assume the paint's a little bit better when you get to do the penciling, the
Oh
inking,
yeah.
the coloring.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
It all adds up, right? I mean,
But
yeah.
it's cool. I think for me, especially like as somebody who's been in the business for so long, and for, I would say arguably the first like 20 years of my career, I was just a penciler primarily.
Mhm.
And I was concentrating on just being the best penciler that I could be. And then the last decade has really been about me exploring the other aspects of what I want to present as a creator. Creating projects, being involved with creator-owned projects, developing characters, developing concepts, having fun, doing weird stuff. Like, the first thing I did, like after I left my exclusive at DC, was a Kiss miniseries with Chris Ryall, with the boys set in 1930s Chicago. Like it doesn't get weirder than that.
Right.
Like,
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't even think to ask you about that you were exclusive. I figured you had to be because there was that period where it was just
yeah.
all DC related work. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
ultimately I ended up being like DC was my primary client, and then I was exclusive for 7 years. So altogether for about 15, 16 years, I was just working primarily for DC.
well, it was a very you prolific time for you, and you got to
Yeah,
work on a lot of the characters that you wanted.
yeah.
So that's cool. Um, let's see. So the next piece I wasn't familiar with, and I didn't get to read it yet, but
Okay.
tell me a bit about this one and how it came about.
Okay, so this is a cover for a book called Blacksmith. It's written by Eric Palicki. It's published by Ahoy Comics, and Eric had been wanting to get a cover for me for a very long time, and Ahoy made it happen. And basically, the concept behind the story, it's about this young woman who is a werewolf private detective set in New Orleans. So I really kind of it was an opportunity to experiment, and I really kind of wanted to push the lighting in terms of the coloring itself, and really just wanted to like have this very striking like first issue image with like the clawed hand and the fur coming up the arm, and the wolf silhouette on the wall, and just really like really push it. So the book itself is in black and white, but but obviously the color cover, I did the coloring myself. Played a lot with like filters and lighting, and really had a lot of fun with it. So yeah.
Very cool. It's funny. I don't know where I got the image, but I can see even your O1 and cover at the top. So
Yeah.
maybe I got this off of your website or something,
Probably, yeah.
because this had to have come straight from you. I couldn't find one with a logo on it. Interesting. Well, that's cool, man. I was going to ask you if you'd colored it out. The lighting on this one's really nice.
Thank you.
So, and what year was this one done?
Let's see, I'm trying to remember. It was a couple of years ago, so I want to say 2019 off the top
Okay.
of my head. So yeah, so fairly recent.
All right, now we're going to change gears. We're changing gears a lot, I think, to the
Yeah.
rest of this a bit. Now, how did this gig come about? I know it's a variant cover,
Yeah.
and this at any rate, this is lot 15, priced at $1,000 on 11 by 17 from Geiger 6.
Yeah.
And is this the only cover that you did for this?
This is this is the only cover. This is the only cover that I did. So Jeff Johns and I go back a long, long way.
You're not gonna say like back to the intern days when you were doing some paste ups and he was opening boxes.
Yeah, so Jeff and I go back a very long way. We've been friends for years and years. I'm a huge fan of his. I'm a huge fan of Gary's. And when they asked me to do it, I absolutely jumped at it. And but the funny part about this cover is that I had to alter this cover actually, because when I originally did the original version of the cover, and whoever buys the original will see the changes that were made. Because when I originally penciled the cover, the young ladies in the front were all topless.
Aha. Yes.
It was all strategic, but I was then informed that we could not have topless dancers on the cover. And I think there was, with the if I remember correctly, the young lady on the left side of the cover, there was a gentleman, or at least a gentleman's hands beneath her reaching up, so it was a little bit more suggestive.
Well, at least they caught it before it went to print. Oh man, well that's cool. Obviously,
it's good to be the king.
yes, it is. I said that recently about something I can't. But yes, it's cool. Obviously, Jeff and Gary, they're doing the whole Ghost Machines thing right now within this world. I mean, that's pretty cool. You ever think about doing something like that yourself, like just going all out with like creator owned bent and not looking back, or do you kind of like the mix of work always coming in?
It's kind of weird. Like, I love, because we've been doing the Wrong Earth for 6 years.
Yeah.
Over at Ahoy. I did Dudley Datson with Scott, and we're talking about doing other stuff. I like having the opportunity to work on different things, both for corporate companies and for myself. It's kind of like I'll take their money, but I won't kiss them on the mouth, kind of thing.
Right.
So, but I think the variety and getting the opportunity to work on corporate IPs is always fun. I like to leave myself open for that.
Very cool. Yeah, that's God Loves Comics said that the nudity would have added another. Probably true. And I see James N has claimed lot 3. Thank you, James. We appreciate that. And I don't know if I've ever seen your name in the chat before, but when the show's over, just shoot an email to bill@comicartfans.com, and we will take care of payment, collecting your shipping information and all that stuff. So thank you. Appreciate that a lot. Let's see. So next here we have a different one. We have the We Have Demons #2 cover. And this is lot 16, priced at $900. And did you color this one too?
I did color that one. Okay. Yes. So again, really getting into very harsh lighting on her figure, and really just wanting to I don't really get to do pieces like this. Which is weird, because I love drawing horror. And I love drawing monsters, and I love designing monsters. And this kind of thing is right up my alley. Like, if you guys, any of you have read, I design creature characters for a lot of different books, Dudley Datson, Supergirl. I haven't really had the opportunity to do it. Well, I did. In the most recent issue of The Wrong Earth, I drew this kind of giant monster dragonfly. Like drool coming out of the mouth and 6 wings and everything. So, but I love this kind of creature design, and it was, again, I think all of the best jacket artists who were doing the first round of books were all doing variant covers. So it was fun. It was just a fun piece to do.
Very well. When was this one done?
Oh, this was 2022.
2020, so fairly recent.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, with stuff like this and with these creatures, I assume you got character design sheets or something for it.
Oh no,
or
no, they
this was
sent
all
me.
you.
They sent me. No, they sent me the issue.
Ah,
They sent me the first issue. And I mean, it's Greg Capullo. Like,
right.
you know, you can't go wrong with one of his creature designs.
Right.
So it's just kind of like trying to get that same flavor in, you know.
Well, I think you did.
I thank you. I like to I like to think that I did.
Now we're going for something, kind of evil here to
Yeah.
something completely different with lot 16 or 17. It's the Kwanzaa card art.
Yes.
And I was able to find the color piece to this. I mean, and so how did this come about? I mean, as far as work, because this was for DC, right?
This was for DC. This was, very specifically, like, every so often, I'll get an email from creative services. They'll ask me if there's something that, that they think is right up my alley and that I can tackle. And the thing was, it's like I could add for this card, I could actually pick any characters, any African-American DC characters that I wanted to choose. And I decided that I wanted to focus on some of the newer characters, like Naomi and Signal and Wallace, and Joe Million. Mostly because I wanted to draw them, because I hadn't had the opportunity to draw them.
Sure.
So, but it was just, again, another piece that I colored myself. It ended up being a lot of fun, trying to figure out how to make a candle look like a candle in terms of color. But yeah, no, I was really happy with the overall result,
Yeah, no,
it was a fun piece. It was, it was fun to, because one of the great things about working with other people's characters, especially, is like, especially if they've been around for a while, like trying to find the pieces that you could adapt to your own style and make them work. And I'd like to think that, I did that effectively enough that people seem to really like the piece. So.
With something like that, when you're trying to get your style right, I mean, do you do a lot of, I wouldn't say prelims for this piece, but do you do a lot of your own character studies, trying to get, trying to figure out how you want to handle it before you dive into this? You're not working those things out on the piece, right?
A little bit, but a lot of it is just sort of working out as you're working. Although, like, with Joe Million, I was definitely basing her on Janelle Monáe.
Mm-hmm.
So, that made it sort of easier. But part of it was also like trying to keep the characters looking individual, trying to keep from having like sort of like the same faceness thing that can happen a lot of times when you're trying to do stuff. We default to the thing that we see most, which is usually our face. So, you can't help but have little pieces of your own expression or your own features in your characters. And I worked very hard to try and avoid that as much as possible, and to try to keep everybody looking individual and having their own individual sense of self and weight.
Mm-hmm. That is true. There are a few artists that I know who I see their likeness in a lot of their artworks. Some of it, like with Sean Phillips, it's to the point where it's just fun. It's like, which character is Sean?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, not all of us could look like, freaking Dan Mora and Jorge Jimenez. Like,
exactly. That's very true. Let's see. So we got 3 more to look at. The next one is interesting. I mean, this is the last 11 by 17 piece we have. I couldn't find the published piece to it, although I remember you writing that it was out there. I dug around. I couldn't find it.
No, it was published as a variant cover, like a limited edition variant cover that I think was only given out to Kickstarter backers.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is for a series called White. Which is the sequel to another series called Black that I did with Black Mass Studios. So the story behind this is very interesting. So we did Black, the first series, as a Kickstarter. We funded the Kickstarter. We were going for a $30,000 funding goal. We funded the initial Kickstarter in 4 days.
Oh, wow.
and then ended up raising $90,000 for the first miniseries. And then we did the second miniseries years later. So the series, Black and White, it's set in a world where only Black people have superpowers. And the character with the funky machete is a character called X, and X is public enemy number one. X has the ability to adapt to any situation. So his power is to adapt to any outside trauma, any situation. So he is one of the most powerful characters set in this world. And in the first miniseries, he gets introduced after he is shot by the police, wakes up in the back of an ambulance completely unharmed, and gets brought into this world where he teams up with this team of underground superheroes who are trying to protect people with superpowers from being hunted by the government and corporate interests. And then in the second miniseries, the villain from the first miniseries, who's called Theodore Mann, or the Man, becomes president of the United States in the second miniseries. So this was published by Black Mass Studios. We did the first miniseries in 2016, did the second miniseries in 2019, and then the hardcover edition is coming out this summer, actually, the collected hardcover. So all 6 issues. So this is the only cover that I've done for this series. Like, I've done all the interior pages, but this is the only cover.
Well, that's interesting. I knew you had done the interiors. So how did that happen? I mean, just too many other artists, that were.
There's a lot of variant covers floating. They have covers from like Kari Randolph. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of variant covers out there.
So there's as we move into the next 2 covers, I mean, a good question for you is, I mean, no ego when you're not doing the covers and you're just doing it. Doesn't bother you at all? No,
because I'm part of a team.
Right.
Usually, it doesn't serve me, to kind of rock the boat that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're all here moving towards the same goal of putting out good product. It doesn't matter if I'm doing the cover or somebody else does the cover. In fact, I love seeing other people draw my characters. I get a kick out of it.
That's true. So you did all the character design, I assume.
Yeah. Well, no, not for that series. It was a very Tim Smith III actually designed all the characters. He's the co-creator. I sort of the way that I kind of describe that our team on that book is Kwanzaa Osajifo, who's the writer, and Tim, who designs everything. They're John and Paul, and I'm George.
Makes sense. Well, it sounds like, I mean, a fun team to work with, right?
Oh yeah, no, good guys.
Well received too, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Just the love for the series is deep with some people, and it's been optioned. Warner Brothers has been threatening to make a film for years, so we'll see if that happens. I always tell them, like, I don't, that's above my pay grade. Just make sure I get my ticket to the premiere. Tell me if I need to tell me if I need to buy a new suit. Get a ticket to the premiere, get my movie check. I'm good.
Exactly. Oh, well, that'll be cool if it happens.
Yeah.
So we got 2 more pieces to look at. They are the huge ones. They are the largest of the sets here, both from G.I. Joe. And these are both from 2013.
Yes.
We can look at lot 19 here. Again, wraparound cover. It's priced at $2,500. This was from the 2013 G.I. Joe IDW book.
Yes.
And fun. I mean, the idea of getting to do. I mean, have you done a lot of wraparound covers before this pair?
No, I think this was like probably the first wraparound cover. These were the first wraparound covers that I've done. I actually haven't done a wraparound cover in a while. Kind of due. I think it's been a few years, but yeah, this was these were the first. There's actually 3 covers that I did. One I actually donated to a charity auction years ago, but I've been holding on to these since 2013.
Well, clearly you've got space to store them. Do you have like a large flat file?
Well, they get stored everywhere.
Yeah, I ended up buying a tool chest, a Husky tool chest to put all the artwork in. While
no, we have a flat file of storage that we don't have room for. So yeah, but yeah, I've got a decent amount of storage space around the apartment. What doesn't go in the file goes into watertight bins, and everything is separated by like Mylar bags. So
that is very wise.
Yes,
and you don't live in the South where you have to worry about tornadoes or hurricanes.
No. But I am in New York where we get the occasional hurricane. So
well,
we get the occasional nor'easter.
That's true. That's true. When I was in Boston for a while, I got a few storms, but I wasn't there long enough to experience too many of them. But how did this gig come about? Right? Had you worked with IDW at all prior?
Yeah, I'd been, like I said, I'd been working on Kiss at that point, up until that point. I did 2 issues and then like 3 more covers for that. And I was kind of bouncing around a little bit, trying to figure out what I was doing. I was also working on my own series, Molly Danger, at the same time. And when I was finishing up Molly Danger, I remembered that I really didn't know that many people in the business at that point who hadn't been at DC or working for DC. So I knew Chris Ryall, and I had emailed Chris Ryall, who had gotten me the Kiss gig, and he knew that I had done G.I. Joe before, back in the early 2000s for Devil's Due, and that I was a Joe fan, and asked me if I wanted to do these G.I. Joe covers, and I said, hell yeah.
Sweet.
So I ended up doing these 2 covers. I penciled a couple of issues. Penciled an issue of the main Joe book. I penciled an issue of G.I. Joe Special Missions. And I did like a bunch of covers over the course of like 2 years, in between those 2 years, 2013 and 2014. So yeah.
Cool. We'll show the other cover then, because that was a Special Missions cover. And I love this one. I love the perspective on it. I love the cool side. I mean, it's slick. I don't know. There's just something about it, and there's a lot of detail in this one. I mean, look at all that work you put in the background that you don't really see too well in the final printed piece. But yeah, this one's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, again, it's that sense of completeness in me. It's long ingrained at this point. You know, the funny part about it is like looking at the amount of roughness to try to like make sure that the trees are right, like the snow like hanging on the pines looked right, you know.
How long for something like this? Because again, it is 19 by 24, so it's not 2 11 by 17 boards.
5 days. 5 days. 5 days of pencil and ink altogether. Yeah, so it was 3 days to pencil and 2 days to ink.
Damn. So when you do a wraparound, do they give you a double cover rate? They gave me a double cover rate. I could have done it like normal size, but I was the one who decided like they had to be nice, because I had bought like a bunch of 19 by 24 Strathmore specifically so that I could do larger covers. So that is these are single pieces, like, you know, I'm really proud of that work. I would love, like, I've been reading the Energon Universe G.I. Joe stuff. Like, that stuff was fantastic. If I had the free time to like approach Kirkman about doing more Joe stuff, I would love to. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's funny. I didn't grow up on G.I. Joe. I missed out on all the cartoons, read some of the comics. But I mean, you see that recent Kickstarter that?
I did the compendium. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's at like $1.5 million so far. The fan base is huge.
The fan base is. Listen, I am right in that sweet spot for
Yeah.
GI Joe. I was like 10 when the first issue of GI Joe came out. Like for me, that was like the first, like one of the first like newsstand comics that I remember buying. That and Alpha Flight. So
Sure.
how did I
Wow.
manage to scan it? I scanned it in 4 pieces. That's how I managed to scan it.
Yeah, that's a good question, Eric. I assume you have an 11 by 17 scanner as well,
I
right?
do. Yeah, I have a flatbed scanner that my wife bought me years ago that has been a lifesaver.
Yeah, well, and Photoshop has that like stitching feature that it can try to stitch things together for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, that's tough. 'Cause mine only got an 11 by 17 as well, and I've if I had to scan this, I would have probably been I don't know, I wouldn't have been cursing your name or anything, but it would have been a little bit of work.
Well, but the fun thing also, and it's like the big difference between the 2 covers is that the special mission covers, like that's all the traditional like Joe costumes.
Mhm.
The GI Joe cover, GI Joe #1 cover, those were all new designs.
Oh, really?
So I had to do so much, like I had to like track down like all the traditional Joe designs for the special mission covers, like to just kind of get them right, you know? Like
Mhm. Here, I'm just going to show everybody how huge this is, so you can get the
yeah.
idea. You know, an 11 by 17 page beside it. I mean, yeah. But remember, you asked for it. This is the way you wanted it.
Yeah.
And that's nice. I like the fact that it's on one board. I mean, you know, it's cool getting a DPS and the masking tape on the back, but
Oh,
when
yeah.
you can get it on one board, it just feels different. It feels like it's like a legit work of art.
Oh yeah, if you have the time, like the idea of working twice up really appeases me. Like it pleases me. Appease is the wrong word. It pleases me. I wish I had the time to do more of it. But you do what you can.
Exactly. So listen, I'm going to recap just real quickly the pieces that we didn't sell, so anybody who's watching after the fact knows which ones are still available. And for those of you, what was it? We got James and Mike who picked up pieces. You guys can email me right after the show, and we'll and when you do it, send me your mailing address when you do that. It kind of cuts to the chase. It's one less question I have to ask going into it. And if you know which payment method you want to use, even better. Tell me that as well. But let's see here. So let's see. Lot one is available at $400 from Supergirl 36. We have lot 2 from Supergirl 38. And let's see, lot 3 went to James. So we have lot 4. This is from Supergirl 43, priced at $300. And Supergirl decking Dr. Light from Supergirl 55. And that's lot 5. Lot 6 is from Teen Titans. That's the title page to issue 55. You get all the extra character headshots there at the bottom. And let's see, lot 7 went to Mike. So then we have the Superman page from 714. That's lot 8. Lot 9 is the Flash cover. That was for a variant for the Connecticut Comic-Con. Yes. And then we got the 2 Snickers ad pages. This is lot 10 and lot 11. Then we're going to have a pair of Archie covers with lot 12 and 13. And then we've got that Blacksmith #1 cover for lot 14. And then the Geiger cover for a variant issue 6, lot 15. And we have Demons cover, issue 2, colored by Jamal as well. And then we have the Kwanzaa card at lot 17, the white cover at lot 18, and then the 2 GI Joe covers that we were just looking at, lots 19 and 20, both $2,500 each. So, Jamal, this was fun, man.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, I would really like to think about how we could do something with some of the SVA educators. If there, like if there was a point. I mean, do you guys work straight through the summer? I mean, what's the?
No. I'm off for the summer. I start back up in September. But there is a contact. I mean, everybody who works at SVA for the most part is a working professional. So so it's so they're easy to get in touch with.
Cool. Well, let's talk more after the show about, maybe getting a group together. I think that would be fun. I mean,
Sounds good.
there aren't, a lot of illustration and narrative arts aren't taught everywhere.
No,
right.
no.
And you guys being right in New York, I mean, again, a lot of famous artists, well-known comic artists have gone through there, both as students and as teachers. So
Yes.
I mean, it's got the pedigree. That's
Yes,
why I wanted to go there.
Absolutely.
Go there when I was a kid. It was that was it. But yeah, that would be really nice. But this was great. We didn't even get to touch on your entire career, man. But
we'll have to come back on.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. So listen, I appreciate you doing this, and everybody in the chat hanging out with us. I sincerely appreciate you hanging all this time. And if you're fans of original comic art, you should subscribe to our channel. All that stuff that I never think to talk about because I'm not great at marketing, but do that. Hit the thumbs up. All those fun things that get it into other people's views. But Jamal, it's a lot of fun, man. I hope do you have any shows coming up? I mean, anything that we can promote where you're going to be?
Yeah, so July 14th, I will be at Springfield Comic Con in Springfield, Massachusetts. August, I will be in Tucson for a show. September is Baltimore. October is New York. So yeah.
So you're busy for the next.
I'm busy. Yeah. I'm hitting at least. Yeah, I'm hitting like one show a month for exactly. The summer into the fall.
Cool. Well, there you go. So anybody wants to get a convention sketch from Jamal, he likes to sketch during the convention hours. So hit him up. He's willing to do 20.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Again, thanks for tuning in on a Saturday afternoon. We appreciate it. And we'll see. Well, actually, I have a show tonight at 9 o'clock. So anybody who wants to pop in and see me unbox some original art from the next comic art team, we've got a few pieces to look at. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. But have